for over 37 years, I've advised Fortune 500 companies and government agencies on a lot of technology adoption. I was a principal at Deloitte and KPMG, and also an SVP at Bearing Point, which was a spinoff of KPMG. And I retired in 21 from KPMG, and I took a little bit of a sabbatical, about 6 months, and I was just flat out bored. So I decided I just wanted to get back into consulting. So I established the Zazo Group. And in 23, this was really a pivotal moment for me. The end of 22, early 23, uh, ChatGPT had launched. It was being adopted rather quickly. A lot of confusion out there, a lot of people opining on what it can and cannot do, et cetera. And I just recognized that there's a clear gap in how businesses were trying to prepare for it. So I pivoted 100% of my time into learning about AI and figuring out how to apply it in a business sense and also personal. So I actually started with personal, and then as I was consulting with clients on other ERP type work, I started introducing what AI could potentially do for them. So our focus today is really helping CFOs and other C-suite executives pinpoint where AI is going to really add value in a business and what the practical adoption should be. And what we do is we'll go from education to strategy to implementation. So literally an end-to-end delivery mechanism that I've put in place with our company. And the goal, of course, is to, at the end of the day, being able to use AI in a responsible manner and get value out of it too, and understand what the pitfalls are because it's not all it's not a walk in the park. So, uh, as Reuven had mentioned, Jeff Boley last month presented AI for resume tailoring, meeting summarizations, lead generation outreach, even crafting email responses. So today I want to take that a step further in a more practical manner in terms of how you would use AI in the finance world. So why does AI matter? How do AI models work? What's the practical finance applications that you can apply using AI? What are some of the automations and controls? What different models environments are available? And then we'll do a brief wrap up. And I've got a bonus for you too at the end so please stick around. I think you'll appreciate what that is. So let's set the stage. Why does AI matter to professionals? Well, let's face it, finance teams, you guys are under an intense pressure. You've got expedited close cycles, you've got variance analysis to do, you've got questions coming left and right from the C-suite, you've got reporting and compliance, and potentially even regulatory issues that you need to be dealing with. And for those that have boards, you've got to be reporting to the board, and you've got to do it in a clear narrative so that they get it. So my point here is simply AI levels up the execution of what you need to do, and it's going to be your greatest asset if you haven't already figured that out. But let's clarify some misconceptions here. It isn't about AI replacing anybody. It really isn't. And a lot of folks have talked about it, and the reality is it's going to replace some jobs, sure. I mean, just like every technology has replaced jobs, but it's more about how it's going to help you. So the left side of this picture here, closing, doing more expedient closings and reconciliations and variance analysis, tracking liquidity and working capital, creating forecasts, writing CFO-ready financial narratives for the board or for anybody else in the organization. That's just the tip of the iceberg, by the way. There's a ton more things you can do. But what it's not going to do for you, it's not going to apply your GAAP IFRS standards automatically. You don't want it to do that, let's face it. It's not going to be approving material transactions autonomously. You don't want it to do that. It's not going to be updating your financial systems unless you've got certain rules in place that you want it to do that. So maybe you've got a feed going from a set of journal entries that you want AI to help put into the financial system. And the key word here is it's got to be with you, though. It's got to be with your oversight. So there's a human factor that's really important to to keep top of mind when you're dealing with AI. It isn't use AI and then just take the answer and run with it. Because if you do that, every time you're going to fail. It's using AI responsibly, evaluating the response, and then moving forward with it. So let's talk about how models work. I think this is very important for some folks just to help level set. So AI depends on what we call large language models, and there are small language models too, but we'll just focus on the large for a moment. And this is a very simplified process of how a model gets trained. But it starts with quality data, and the key word here is quality, because a lot of data in organizations isn't necessarily great data. And a lot of the AI models have been trained on everything and anything that's been digitized since digitalization happened. So can you imagine the terabytes upon hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of terabytes of data being sucked up into an AI model? Well, you got to clean the data before you can use it. And that might be just stripping out nonsensical information. You got to format the data, and the word tokenization comes in here, and I'll talk about that in a minute. You got to transform this data. You've got to fine tune it. And it's an army of people. Both the computers are fine tuning the models themselves, and you've got people using the models and fine tuning it before they get launched. Then you deploy it and you scale it up, and then you start using it. And this is a process that it's iterative. It happens constantly. So every once in a while, one of the major players will announce a new model came out. Well, that new model might interact differently with you than the old model did. And for a number of reasons, a lot of it is the algorithms they use to train it and the way they want it to interact with you. In fact, just a side note here, just today, Sam Altman called a code red to his organization. Well, what the heck's a code red? Well, they classify things in um, yellow and red, and I forgot what the middle is, but needless to say. Point I want to make simply is that he realizes that they need to up their game a little bit, and they launched a model. The model, the last model 5.1, it's great, but then Gemini just eclipsed them with Gemini 3. And I think we also have other models to concern ourselves with too, like Anthropic or Perplexity. So it's constantly evolving. The landscape's evolving. But let's talk about how AI models generate answers. And the thing I want you to take away from this, if anything, is the AI is not thinking. It's not a human. It's doing pattern recognition. So how does that work? I mentioned tokenization earlier. You type in a prompt. The system tokenizes that text you typed in. It then predicts what the next token is. So it's not reading the words, it's reading these packets of numbers. And because the way it was trained, and each model is trained a little bit differently, it's determining in an algorithmic fashion what the next word should be to give you the result. So a real simple one would be Jack and Jill. Now we can all answer in the chat, but you don't need to. What's the logical words coming after Jack and Jill? Went up the hill. Okay, how did it know that? Well, it read that a number of times in a lot of different sources and books and things that it consumed, and it just concluded, anytime I see Jack and Jill, I know it's the next three words should be went up the hill. You know, that's a simple characterization, but that's technically how it works. Let's talk about different models of AI and applications of AI. Well, this is the one that we're all familiar with here, this first column here called Gen AI, where you might go to an AI model, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity or any of them, and you might just type in draft an email. Now, of course, you're going to put more context around it for this example. Draft an email. Well, what happens next? The large language model, such as maybe ChatGPT, will take that input and it will then create an output, whether it's text, images, video, or code. The point here is simply that LLM is passive. It's only doing what you told it to do, and that's it. It doesn't have access to any other tools in your environment. The next example is you've heard a lot about AI workflows. Well, in an AI workflow, it's a little more interesting. More things are happening. You input maybe schedule a meeting on Monday. Now you're going to give it more context in this, but say schedule a meeting on Monday with Reuven, and I want that meeting somewhere between 12 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The LLM, like ChatGPT in this example, will then interact with whatever calendaring system that you gave it access to. So you might have connected your LLM to Outlook or to Google, as an example here. It's going to output a completed task, which is it's going to schedule that meeting for you, that invite. In this case, the LLM has access to tools, but it still remains passive because it's requiring you to tell it what you want it to do. And what did you tell it you wanted to do? You wanted to schedule a meeting on Monday with Reuven sometime between noon and 3. Now it gets even more interesting. We have what's called AI agents. The fundamental shift here is the AI, you're setting a goal. The goal that you're setting in this example is manage my workplace calendar. The agent or a number of agents then will work with an LLM, could be ChatGPT or any of the other ones, and it'll just start to iterate and start interacting back and forth and looking at the calendar, going back and forth, and start to reason in terms of, well, what do you have on Monday's schedule? What do you have on Tuesday's schedule? And it may also have an agent already built into this that you said, for each entry that's in here, I want you to pull together some meeting notes so I'm prepared for that meeting. So, because it's going to know who it is that you're meeting with, it's in your invite, as an example. The output here is a completed task and a set of orchestrated workflows. So the AI agent has access to your tools, and this is the key thing here, it's starting to act autonomously. And this is where we're at today. So I'm going to take a step, quick. Do you have any questions at this point? Has anything come up, Reuven? Because I haven't been looking at uh,
I haven't seen anything in the chat. I mean,
okay.
and Ray, a perfect example of the Gen AI is last night a client said, I'm thinking of switching my credit card processing over to Bank of America. What do you
Okay.
think? So the first thing I did was I went to ChatGPT and I said, compare Bank of America to this for, credit card processing. And the first thing I got out was, and I said Costco. It said, well, a Costco credit card gives you this information, as if I was getting a. So I had to change it to merchant services. Then once I changed it to merchant services, I then got a comparative chart, what the rates were, everything else. So instead of having to search all over, it did it for me.
Correct. That's a good example. Thank you for sharing that. So let's talk about selecting the right model for the task. And I notice at the bottom of the chat, it says, don't limit yourself to just one A model, use them all. And I do. I'm typically running 3 monitors on my desk. I've got my laptop, got a big monitor, and I've got a side monitor. And at any given point in time, I'm running at least 2 different models, or I have them active that I'm using. It might be ChatGPT 5.1 and Perplexity Pro or Claude. It just depends. So this is which model do you use? Well, there's really technically no right answer here, but among these models that are presented, I thought it would be helpful for you, and you're going to get these slides, to just give you an idea at this point in time, and this is as of Friday of last week, these are the key strengths from a finance perspective, some limitations, and maybe what you might best use it for regularly. So let's talk about Perplexity. You can get like real-time stock quotes, earning transcripts and such. It's really good for research. I like Perplexity for research, actually. Uh, Limitations, though, it's not so much with integration with other products, but again, that may not be a necessary thing. You might be just comfortable just dealing with it from a generative AI perspective and maybe doing a very simple task. Best used for market analysis, investment screenings, earnings summaries, as an example. I'm not going to go through each one of these, but I just wanted you to get a feel for how this is organized. I'd like to now let's get into the real heart of what this presentation is all about. And we're going to talk about practical finance applications of AI. And just like getting to know a new hire or an intern that's just come into the organization, you want to get them up to speed. From an AI perspective, you want to explain to the AI what's your role going to be? What expectations do you have of the tasks that you want it to perform? You want to give it information about the organization. You're going to want to give it structure. How's the company structured? A lot of times, what I do is I have clients, their websites, if they're in good shape, I'd say use your website to establish introducing the AI to the company, and give it a prompt that will basically, and I'll just say this kind of just generically, suck up every little piece of information that's on our website, consume it, analyze it, get familiar with who we are, what we do, what industry we're in, what products we have, what services we have. Um, Take that information, and now that you kind of know about us, go find out about all our competitors. Who's a competitor of ours? And get all their information too that's available. So go to their websites. And while we're at it, if we're in a regulated environment, go to whatever government websites that are necessary or that have the information, and get all the regulatory information requirements for us too. So what you're basically doing is you're getting it acquainted with your organization by providing context and expectations, company informations, and you want to set boundaries too. You're gonna tell it, look, when you're interacting with me, you absolutely unequivocally better not hallucinate. You better not fabricate. And there's a whole bunch of other things you want to tell it to do too, but you're basically setting the parameters of how you want the AI to work.
Ray, let me stop you a second. Stepping back, I had a question. Do you use the paid or free versions? And if you do use the paid versions, do you see a difference in output results?
I use both, and the answer is yes to the second part of the question. There is a difference. There's limitations with the free. And also there's this thing of privacy and not letting the AI or allowing the AI to whatever data it's consumed that you're starting to feed it specific to the company that may not otherwise be publicly available. I don't want that information consumed by the AI and then the AI training on it. So now it's embedded in its core database. So the paid versions I like better because you can turn off the training. You can turn off training in the free ones too, but the paid ones give you some additional benefit.
Thank you.
If you're getting deep into proprietary, if you're doing things, I mean, another way too, and we'll talk about this later, but just simply redact. I mean, what I used to do on some of the free ones is I take a document. Uh, I might take my meeting notes, redact anything out that's specific to the company so I can't make it identifiable to the best of my ability. Take out any specifics about anything that's hasn't been shared publicly, and then let the AI model work with whatever's left just to get a feel for maybe some analysis I want to do or some brainstorming I want to do. But that's a great question. I'm going to move on to the next here. So when you're dealing with an AI, it's again, it's like dealing with your intern or a new hire. You got to communicate with that, with this entity in this case, and you do it via prompts. And you can the way you structure how you're interacting with the AI is going to influence the output you're going to get. So, for instance, you'll get an okay response by giving it a role. So uh, you are the CFO of a mid-size office supply business based in the Northeast. You give it an objective or a task. I want you to analyze whatever it is you want it to analyze. And the context I just actually mentioned as far as what the company is, and any other additional context that you might want to introduce into that. You'll get a response for sure, but it may not meet your expectations. You'll get a higher degree of a better response if you add a few more things into it, like the tone. Well, I'd like your response to be in a professional manner or in a whimsical manner. An example. Here's an example of a communication that I wrote that I'd like you to mimic in terms of structure. And then format. I want this in a Word document. I want this in an Excel. I want this in a table, whatever. That's going to give you a better response. So those are two different points of view here. Again, you could start off with just a few things like who you wanted to, what role you wanted to assume, what the task is you wanted to conduct, what the context is, or you can get a better result by adding these other pieces like tone, example, and format. All right, I'm going to go now to some examples. So let's talk about strategic finance and forecasting. AI blends where its strength is in core understanding of different aspects of being able to do quick analysis, quality analysis, supporting the analysis with the logic behind it, reducing manual friction that happens in terms of a planning cycle. So the goal again is not to replace the judgment in this case, but it's to give you a sharper visibility in terms of what it's going to do. So like in this example, strategic finance and forecasting, whether it's scenario analysis, forward-looking narratives, validating my assumptions, uh, doing some rapid modeling and commentary. In this example, I want to do a multi-year revenue strategy with a risk awareness. So here's my prompt on the left. Now, the points I talked about earlier, those six different things to make it a better response, they're embedded in here. They may not be in the same order, but regardless, they don't have to actually be in that order. This is my prompt. So I use ChatGPT in this case and let it run. And it gave me, and this is just a very small excerpt of a very long response. And it gave me my 3-year strategic growth pillars. Pillar A, pricing and margin architecture. And it listed that out. What my target KPIs are for years 1, 2, and 3. Capital investment plan for years 1, 2, and 3. Detailed strategic levers, key risks, and such. It was very interesting because now I've got something here that, yeah, we could have done this. My team and we could have done this, and we do this, but it's great to let the AI take the first crack at it. Because the interesting thing is, and the only analogy I can think here is when you're a child, like the sky's the limit. You have no preconception of what you can and cannot do. You just do it, right? As you get older, things start to influence the way you think. Okay. And for the good or for the bad, it just depends. But the point is simply is your thinking may not be as broad as it used to be. You had experiences that prevent you now, either prevent you because you subconsciously or consciously from doing something in terms of your task. The AI doesn't have that. It's boundless. And that's the beauty of being able to use it.
Okay, Ray, there's a question here, and the person who posted it doesn't have their full name. So I want to remind everyone, please put your full name into your picture. So the question they asked was artificial integrity. How do we look at controls, checks and balances, integrity of data to deliver information to make decisions? Source of data, filters, funnels, tunnels, etc.
Well, they actually just answered their own question. When you use AI, you don't take the output verbatim. Uh, the and this is an interesting conversation that people are having, and it's a very valid one. You get a all right, so I've been working for what, a little over 45 years. All right. I've got a lot of institutional knowledge and I've made mistakes along the way. And that's the beauty of it. I've learned, I've made mistakes. I know what's correct and what's not correct when I'm reading. I mostly know what's correct and not correct when I'm reading the output from an AI prompt, from a prompt that I put into an AI. You apply human interaction to a human review. And you, I go through a process where I'll get an output. It reads pretty good. In fact, it reads too good. And I'm like, are you really sure? Is this accurate? Are these sources reliable sources, and I would make it go through the paces of confirming everything that it's given me. And it's how I trip it up. So I'll catch it by it's something that's got in there that's just bogus. And that's the process you have to go through. And probably in a few more years, it will we'll still need to do that to some degree, but we won't have to be as attentive to doing that because we'll have such a higher degree of confidence that the outputs are accurate. I don't know if I
Okay.
answered it clearly enough.
Okay. He asked a follow-up question. Have the traditional time cadences changed due to technology and AI from decades to years, years to months, etc.?
Can you repeat that again, Ruben?
Why don't you ask the question so you can? The question was, have the traditional time cadences changed due to technology and AI?
Do you mean time cadences in terms of when there was Moore's law of computer?
Francesco, why don't you ask the question?
Yeah,
Unmute yourself.
the question. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to ask the question. But we went when I was much younger in my professional career. We went from talking about decades and
Oh,
structuring of data, of transactions in years and decades, and now it's gone in most recent. What is the value of an asset, the life of an asset, and is it gone from decades to years, the days, the seconds to transactions in literally like moments. That's the point I'm trying to understand and quite quite frankly quantify. And when I'm talking to banks about refinancing a transaction, what is the lifespan of an asset?
well, why don't you ask AI that question? No, I'm serious. I mean that very respectfully. I would ask AI that question because my gut reaction is, yeah, things have exponentially accelerated, but in terms of the depreciation life cycle in the years, I don't know what that impact is. That's going to be specific to whatever the asset is that you're talking about.
TBD. Okay, well, no, thanks. I appreciate that.
No, you're welcome. But I would ask. I mean, and better yet, and it could be on free versions. It doesn't have to be on paid versions. I mean, that's a very generic sort of a question. I would ask multiple models the same question and then compare the answers just to get a feel for what it's thinking, because models are trained up to a certain point. The cutoff could have been in 23, 24, or just as recently as September of 25. Uh, but also models can also go and extrapolate data real time from the internet as well. So you get kind of the best of both worlds. But I definitely would do
But
And
the more
then,
things change, the more they stay the same, huh? It's just the pace of
that.
change is accelerated.
Listen, man, I feel like I'm drinking through a fire hose, honest to God. I mean, some mornings I wake up panicked.
okay, and then Camila made a good comment. I try to outline my thoughts first and then
Right.
get AI's approach and then compare, contrast, perspective, and critique from AI. It's
Perfect.
been super to provide new thoughts and not been limited by AI. Um, and then, one thing I found interesting, one of the professors at Southwestern where I teach, uh, instead of trying to fight AI, gives his students um, an assignment and says, okay, use AI to, find the answer to this. And then I want you to go through the AI answer and critique it and say everything it did that was wrong.
I think that's brilliant. That's a great
So,
play because it's here. It's unless it gets regulated out, it's going to be people are going to be using it. I'm going to move
and,
on.
and someone just said, I've
Yeah.
learned you can ask AI to tell you its confidence level in its answer.
Yes. Yeah, Kelly, that's a very good point. That's absolutely right. You can ask it, how confident are you? Or keep at it until you're 95% certain you can complete this task. You could throw that sentence at the end of any of your prompts as an example. We should have a whole day just on prompting, to be honest. It'd be a lot of fun. Risk management controls. Here's another area. So it'll strengthen our risk management by giving CFOs a clearer, faster view of exposure across the business. Okay. For instance, it can update risk heat maps. And I'm going to show you something in a second here. It's kind of interesting. Uh, And in fact, let's just jump right to the example. So here's a prompt. Create a comprehensive enterprise risk heat map for a CFO audience. All right. Or you could be a little more specific for my company. Now, let's put the pin in this, or the point you got to make here is it knows about your company already because it's already assembled. You've already assembled information about you, so it has an understanding of the company, the industry, sales, et cetera, et cetera. But and any maybe lawsuits too that you might be faced and things like that. Who knows, right? But categorize the risk by liquidity, regulatory, cyber, market, et cetera. Avoid generic lists, tailor it to, and here we're kind of influencing it that it's 150 million firm in revenues in an unregulated industry. So it's a very generic prompt, but you'd want to make that prompt specific to you. But nonetheless, it created it. It created this heat map that you can download and you can play with in Excel. And that took probably about maybe 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. Yes.
One thing I've noticed with at least with ChatGPT, it does give you this output, but often I have to say, please create a downloadable PDF or a downloadable Word or Excel file.
Yeah, that's the format. Yes, you would add that to the format. Yeah.
Yeah.
Compliance and reporting. Okay, so I think that AI can remove a significant amount of friction from compliance and reporting. And what I mean by that is you can produce a lot of cleaner set of narratives, stay ahead of what policy changes are, and maintain consistent documentation without going through a bunch more manual review cycles. So here's an example. SOX 404 control testing matrix. So I needed a SOX 404 control testing matrix. I gave it a prompt to create one. I said avoid vague control descriptions, make them audit ready. Now this had a total, this gave me 7 categories. I just took a snapshot of the first one of the first item in it, but there might have been 10 or 12 within each of the categories. So financial close reporting, revenue recognition was another, procure to pay, order to cash, general IT controls, payroll and HR, and inventory controls and costs, accounts, excuse me. So, but again, it just generated that for me. So now I got a starting point. And this is the basis. This is what I just, if you walk away with anything, just use AI to help you get started instead of dealing with a blank screen, which we all start with, or we'll go, I'm sure a lot of you do this. I mean, I did this in my consult when I was doing my consulting at the Big Four. I would refer to a prior deliverable, either for that client, for another business unit in the client, or deliverable from another client in a similar industry. And I would use that as my guide to help me create my new deliverable for my current client. So my structure and such. Well, you can use AI the same way. And that's what we're doing here. And here's another area that's interesting, helping the finance team produce stronger board-ready narratives by turning outputs into some financial, clear, consistent messaging that you can have a good tone. Oh, speaking of which, you can train the AI to talk like you. So if you talk when I say talk, right, like you. So very structured, very fluid, very creative, very nuanced. You can train it to do that. You can give it that information and it'll remember it next time it writes something for you. So I wanted to do a strategic quarterly earnings narrative. So draft me something, again, based on information I would have uploaded. So I might have uploaded my financials and any other relevant information that it didn't know about previously. And now I want it to help me create a set of earnings remarks as an example. I mean, even to the point where it starts with my introduction. Thank you for joining today. I'm going to walk you through our quarterly results and outline how current performance aligns with our multi-year growth plan. Now let's talk about revenue performance and on and on and on. So again, this was just verbatim. I just took it and put it in here. I didn't wordsmith it or anything yet, but it's a great start. Now let's talk about another interesting thing. How about interpreting dashboards? I mean, we've all been faced with dashboards, and those of us that deal with them a lot might be a little bit quicker in analyzing them versus those that haven't seen one in a while. So why don't I just, and this is a very simple prompt. You would definitely want to get more intense with this, but can you interpret the results of this dashboard? What's this telling me? Give me the top three insights from this image. So I uploaded the image and it came back and it said, here are the three strongest insights drawn directly from the dashboard data. You got a healthy profit position, but margin dipped. We've got income grew while expenses also increased, but at a slower pace. And lastly, the budget performance is strong on both sides. And it'll go on and on and on and give you that. So the bigger the prompt, the better the prompt. And again, this is a really weak prompt. I just wanted to just tease you with this is something you could do. Um, Take a picture. Here's another thing I do. Sometimes I might be on my phone. I might have found something, a list on maybe it was a LinkedIn uh, post that I read, or a news article that was summarized that I read, and I want that. I want it. I want the narrative of it. I'll take a screenshot of it and I'll just post it right to ChatGPT and I'll say, translate this image or transcribe this image or give me three interesting give me three data points about this image and it'll come back and tell me. And I mean, I'm doing that real time. It just I might be having a cup of coffee and I see something and I don't want to run to my desktop and do it. I'll just do it on my phone quickly. Let's talk about a little bit about task automations. Speaking of which here. All right. So where can AI help? Well, AI is really good at if it's a repetitive task, if it's a complex task, if it's a high volume task, if it's an error prone task, if it's a task that requires high accuracy. AI could be a candidate to help you in any of these scenarios. So let's talk about maybe a repetitive task here. I want AI to do something on a frequent basis. In this case, I'm using ChatGPT and I want to schedule tasks. And this requires a paid account to do this. And quite frankly, all the accounts require paid accounts to do things of this nature. So this is with ChatGPT Plus, which I think that was the $20 version monthly. So it can schedule two types of automations. It can schedule reminders. So send me a reminder at a particular time. And in this case, remind me every Monday morning at 8 a.m. to send a KPI report. So it'll just pop up on my phone or in my email or on my desktop as a notification. Or I wanted to do something a little bit more interesting. That's I have these already on my calendar, so I don't really need it. But in any case, perform a reoccurring check and which require maybe some kind of a web search or a data lookup and notify me if a condition's met. So here's one. Every morning at 7 a.m., check if Bitcoin drops below 92,000 and notify me if it does. Well, it did drop below 92 and it did notify me. You trigger a task by typing a request in plain English, and there's no format that's required. So this is a screenshot of this is what I typed in, which I highlighted it in yellow, which is here on the screen. It thought for about a minute and 16 seconds to create this, and it actually took a little bit longer than I thought it would. I think it just might have been the time of day. A lot of people were hitting it. Check chip point. It titled it checking Bitcoin price threshold daily at 6. It got it. It created that little prompt. And when I went to go look at the actual what it did, it named it. These are the instructions that it wrote. I didn't write it. It wrote it. It took what I wrote and it embellished it a little bit. Daily at 6 a.m. Maybe I only wanted to run weekly at 6 a.m. on a Monday. You can tell it what you want it to tell it. And here's other examples that you might consider. And you can do this today if you've got a paid version. Scheduling a 5 a.m. search of news about margin changes, or layoffs. Structuring at 6 a.m., go search current currencies, exchange rates, because we're an international company. Every morning at 7, scan for significant regulatory updates, and there's always something popping, right? So it'll search different sources for that. Every morning, search for negative news about my top 20 suppliers. So you give it a list of who your suppliers are. You've trained it on that already, or you could put it into the prompt and you can change it as you need to. And then it'll notify you if anything happens because you may not know. How about bankruptcy filings or restructuring announcements for many of my top 50 customers could impact us? First day of each month, remind me to approve payroll inputs. Well, that means you're a monthly payroll, but regardless. Every weekday, remind me to review my cash dashboard. So a lot of things you can do. And you can do this in any of the models. I use Perplexity for one that gives me a daily news briefing on AI related news, and I really come to like it a lot. I like that the Perplexity format and response better than any of the other tools. But I haven't rerun it again since Gemini 3 just came out, so I'll definitely want to do that.
And Ray, how does it notify you?
It'll either pop up as a notification on your desktop if you configured it to do that, or it'll send you an email.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's pretty low key here.
Okay, so I got two questions. Can AI send me notifications via email? That's already been answered, yes.
Yes.
And then somebody asked, I use Gemini typically. Do you have a recommendation on what to use it, i.e., some markedly better in your opinion, and what is your go-to AI model? Perplexity? Question mark. That's the last two comments in the chat.
Yeah. So earlier I had the slides that listed the different AI models, the top ones, and what their capabilities are from a finance perspective. I personally, I do like using ChatGPT. Uh, uh, I just got accustomed to using it, but I also use Perplexity and I use Grok and I use um, Anthropic. Actually, I'm sorry, and I use Claude. Yeah, Anthropic's Claude for different purposes. Now, here's something you can all do. It's very easy. If you want to get a handle on what models do what, you can ask one of the models. Please give me a list of. You might even want to tell it what models so that you get it all inclusive because it sometimes it's kind of takes a shortcut. Like, give me a list of all the models and what their capabilities are and what I can best use them for, and it might only give you 3. It's like, yeah, but you didn't include Grok in here, or you didn't include Gemini in here. Oh yeah, good idea, and it'll go back and redo it again. So, just be a little more proactive and list what the models are, and just ask it what model is good for what type of scenario, what type of use, and it'll change every few months. It'll come back and it might give you a different answer because the models change. So that's my answer to that. Uh, I'd like to briefly talk about AI model environments. So there's 3 that I want to talk about briefly. And you should understand the differences because there's a certain level of risk tolerance and data requirements, and it plays into a long-term AI strategy for you as well. So here's the first one, public models. So this is typically your free models and paid, but it's not an enterprise version. So like ChatGPT Plus, it's not an enterprise version, meaning I'm the only one using it as an example, versus ChatGPT Enterprise, which we'll talk about in a minute. But these are just what I'll call the public models, very low upfront cost, if any, quick way for adoption, and it's got decent performance for everyday use. But the constraints are like your data leaves your environment and it heads over to wherever it resides in whatever cloud. You've got restrictions on there. You got to be concerned about your sensitive data. If for tuning purposes, that's why I always say at the bottom here, make sure you turn off any the feature that the model has for training. It's no 100% guarantee, but it's the best guarantee you're going to get. And the vendor controls how it's handling the data and the privacy. So that's a public model. You got an enterprise model, which now you're upping your game. It's much stronger security compliance. You got your SOC 2, and you've got your GDPR requirements there and protections, especially for HR. So your privacy is more geared towards what's happening in Europe, as an example. Higher level of service and reliability. It's integration, better integration to different tools and such. So now it's opening it up, and you can connect it to your Outlook or your Gemini, Gmail, as an example. It's going to cost you a little more for sure. They still control the suite, but you're not responsible for the infrastructure. So there's your trade-off. And they all come with training already turned off and more assurances that the data won't be used outside of your tenant or your instance. So kind of think of this as your enterprise model. Think of your enterprise model. I'll equate it to your NetSuite or your Oracle financials or Workday financials or SAP financials, and you're running them in a cloud, and you're in your own tenant. It's just you. It's the vendor's software, it's your data, but you've got assurances there that data is not being used anywhere else other than for you. That's where the enterprise comes in.
Ray, question.
Yes.
As far as Copilot,
Yeah.
have you worked with it? Is it worth extra dollars? How is Copilot different than, let's say, ChatGPT?
Yeah, great question. I was going to actually touch on that here. So Copilot, what's nice about Copilot is it's part of the ecosystem of Microsoft Suite. So it's already integrated. So you've got it, it's integrated with your mail, with your Excel, it could be integrated with Microsoft Dynamics, whatever software is that Microsoft has, the integration is pretty much all there, which is nice. And you're self-contained. So the what I'm hearing though, and also by the way, Microsoft does use ChatGPT as its back end for for some of the modeling that it's doing. So you do have some essence of a ChatGPT in this too. What I'm hearing though is I've got a few law firms that are clients and accounting firms that have the Microsoft suite, and they're just not 100% happy with it. They felt that there's still a ways to go, and that they can use. I'll kind of use the analogy of when I was doing a lot of ERP work, we were buying best in class. So I wanted the best in class payroll system, the best in class finance system, the best in class whatever else that we were implementing from an ERP perspective, versus everything came from one vendor, so one throat to choke, like Oracle. That's kind of where we're at with the Microsoft scene at the moment.
And then the question, is there any benefit to using an incognito browser as far as remembering data?
Yeah, well, it won't remember it, but in incognito, you're just you can turn incognito mode on, like for ChatGPT, put it in incognito and let it do whatever you want it to do. It everything disappears then after 30 days. So and they don't share that data, they don't train with it because it's incognito. Okay, I'm going to move on to one more, the third model. And this is self-hosted model. And what do I mean by self-hosted? Well, you you have the hardware, you're running it on in your environment. It could be it's behind your firewall. Data is not exchanged anywhere. It's within your organization. Uh, I see a lot of businesses that have a lot of proprietary information take this route, and they have an IT department though supporting them, or they've got a contract with a managed services company that's providing that support. but regardless, they're training it. It's their models. It's filled with all of their sensitive financial, legal, regulatory, client data, and they went with a base model. And you're going to see something up here, and some of you may be throwing up when they see DeepSeek. Oh my God, that's from China. Yeah, it is, but they have zero access to it because you've literally taken the model and you're running it on in your environment. Like I have on my laptop, I have local models running on my laptop as an example. They're not connected to anything, and I play around with it and I do some demos and such on it for some of my clients. But this is like the most controlled environment here. This is the most locked down environment, is if you're running it self-hosted. And let's go to, I'm going to just towards the end here, I have a little bit of a wrap up, and there's just a few things I want to go over. One is here I say just avoid common pitfalls. So, teams are adopting AI and they're stumbling because they're rushing into it and they're rushing into it without fixing the basics. So, classic example. I've got clients that want to they got FOMO, first of all. Oh my God, fear of missing out. The executive suite said, we got to do something. We got to do something. Let's bring AI in here. They gave somebody responsibility that showed interest in AI. I want you to automate something. We got to automate something in here. Let's find a process that's taken a lot of time and let's automate that. Well, reality is, yeah, the process has taken a lot of time. It's probably a broken process, but they're not dealing with the brokenness of the process. They're just automating it. So now they've just sped up how poor this process is running. It's running even more inefficiently, and it's spewing out a lot of garbage too. So, the point I want to make there simply is it's just like any other technology you want to put in. Re-engineer the business process first. Give some thought to that. You can't get away from it. You can't take the easy way out. Look at the business process to determine whether or not it's possibly a candidate for some type of automation that I can apply AI to. Some of them aren't. Some of them are. So I know it's a generic comment I just made there, but it's pretty practical. Using inconsistent prompt structures. Get everybody trained. Probably nobody was trained on how to use email. And I see companies going down the same path with nobody's getting trained on how to use AI and are using it inconsistently. And furthermore, they're not sharing among one another what they're doing because they're afraid they're going to lose their job. So there's a little bit of a change management thing going on here too. You've got to get everybody comfortable that we want to bring AI in for these reasons. Here's how it's going to help you. And yeah, you're going to have to upscale. You're going to have to learn more, but that's a good thing. It's going to help you in the long run. It's going to make your job easier in the long run. Some of the mundane tasks you were doing, things you really didn't want to do or like to do, but you learned to do anyhow, it can do it for you. So let it do that when the opportunity arises. No internal expectations, so there's no clear vision, there's no strategy. It's not a top down. Here's why we're doing it, and here's how we're going to get there, and this is how it's going to help us. Uh, Over trusting the output, we talked about that earlier. You can't just take it verbatim. I'm sorry. I'd like to, but you're better off. I remember one time I was pulling together some disclosure that I wanted to put in a document, and because we always had these at KPMG and Deloitte for that matter, and put it in there, and I just was like, oh man, I can't think this through anymore, and it was end of day. So I asked it to create a whole bunch of different disclosures for me that I can put in a document just to make people aware that of some of the pitfalls of using AI. And it introduced a sentence in there based on the foreign nation of the Uganda. These are the things that you should be concerned about. And I'm like, where the hell did this come from? I had no clue. So thank goodness I read it before I used it. And of course, I redacted that and I ran it again and I made it tighter and et cetera, et cetera. Fear and distrust. Everybody's afraid of change, unless you do change management for a living. So, and it's human nature, and there's a lot of hype out there. I mean, there's these big publications, 14,000 employees being let off by IBM or by Amazon, and uh, I'm not going to be hiring any more coders to do any of the coding work and such. Those are just reactions at the moment because nobody knows what they don't know, and they're stumbling. Things will start to settle down. But you've got to, as leaders, whether you're in the finance organization or any other organization, you really need to take it upon yourself to communicate who, what, where, how, when, and why. And most importantly, I've seen companies introduce AI with zero governance. I mean, they have no rules or anything in place. So you've got employees maybe using AI and they shouldn't be using it, first of all, and they're using it on their phone, and you don't want them to be doing that. You want them to be using the enterprise version, and it just all hell breaks loose. So you've got to take those into considerations. There's a lot more too. I'd say some of the key takeaways are AI will strengthen the financial analysis and the narratives and the transactions within the finance function. Leaders can guide the organization into a more mature AI positioning long term. Structured prompting gives you better answers at the end of the day and more consistency and accuracy. And having a strong governance model is like super important. You just have to have that. And I don't care what size organization you are, whether you're an organization of two or one or 1,000 or 100,000, you need some type of governance in there, something that you can always refer back to just refresh your memory of what we should and shouldn't be doing. So what's next? I'd say you want to assign a clear owner of your AI governance. So if you are a group of one, you're wearing all those hats, let AI help you with the governance model of what you need in place. Uh, Start structuring some prompts, some workflows and such. There's lots of opportunity, just tons. And then identify a few use cases because they're not all going to work. But it's good to brainstorm. And you can use AI to help you develop some use cases too. Get a group of people in a room. Get somebody from the front of the house of the organization, the back of the organization, and some middle managers in between, and have some brainstorming sessions. So with that, I did say looks like most of you all did stick around, so that's good. I want to give you the opportunity to download this guide, the Finance Professionals Guide to Generative AI. It's got a ton of really cool stuff in there. It's a practical way to use AI. It explains safe usage across the public enterprise, self-hosted models and such. It walks you through the core principles of effective prompt engineering. It tells you about role definition, context, tone, all that. There's a huge prompt library in there for CFOs, controllers, finance teams. It covers strategy, reporting risk, M&A, operations, technology, you name it. It's like, I can't remember how many pages it is, but it's pretty big. So you can whip out your camera and take a screenshot of that, or go to this link on the bottom, whatever is easier for you. And there's other documents that you can download too. There's an HR one in there. If you've got a friend who's in HR or your counterpart in HR, there's a HR Professionals Guide to Generative AI, very similar, but the prompts are all different, of course. And have at it.
Okay,
And
Ray, there's a couple of questions. I think four up. There was Camila. What about some of the smaller development platforms? For example, have you worked with lovable.dev for app
oh
development?
yeah, vibe coding. Yep. Oh my God, what a riot. So so much fun to do vibe coding, and you can come up with some really interesting production stints. So here's the deal. For what I'm talking about here, I'm sorry, I didn't even think to put that in here, but regardless. So vibe coding is really it's the ability for you as a non-technical person. Right? You may be technical in your aspects of finance, but you're not a developer, you're not a coder, programmer. There's vibe coding tools. There's Lovable, there's Bolt .new, there's Replit. There's a ton of them. There's all different ones out there, and they again, I would use AI to say, hey, give me a list of all the different vibe coding tools available and rank them in order of ease of use, cost, pros, cons, features, functionality, etc. What I want to get to though is, so you talk to it, you give it an idea of what you want it to do, and then it goes off and does it. So I'm a little old school where I really still like that tactile paper from time to time, and I read a lot of articles, Wall Street Journal, uh, TechCrunch, Barron's, you name it, New York Times, etc. Uh, and I and a lot of technology articles and such. And what just annoys the heck out of me is when I'm online and I'm looking and I'm reading it, and these ads are popping up left and right, and they're embedded throughout the entire article. It just drives me crazy. So one day, I don't know, I guess it was last Easter, I said to myself, why don't I need something that can like take a link to an article and just strip out everything except for the pictures that are relevant to the article and the text. Preserve everything else. I need the title. I want to know who wrote it. You know, I'm not going to do anything with this. I'm not repurposing it. I just want to I want it without all the ads. So I wrote a little thing called Article Stripper, and it's on. I think I wrote it doing Lovable. Oh no, Bolt. I use Bolt.com, and I did it for free, which was really cool. And it works about 80% of the time. It took me 4 or 5 iterations to get it to where I wanted it to do. And where it doesn't work is sometimes you give it a link to an article and it won't it won't allow the bot to read the article because they've got their gates up. Okay, I get that. But yeah, it's really cool. You could do that for a lot of things. You can. I'm actually starting now to I'm actually going to be vibe coding all of my AI assessment tools so that we can do the assessments online and in the database and then take the information out of the database and help develop the assessment rankings and such for clients for part of the strategy projects I do. A lot of fun.
Okay, Bill, you had a question?
Yes. How do self-hosted AI models in a contained environment take advantage of model updates?
Great question. Um, some of them, so when a model does get updated, some of them will basically overwrite everything you've trained your model on. So it puts you back at your starting point. Uh, what we've done is we've created some scripts to basically preserve what the original model had in terms of uh, data specific to your company that you put in, so that when the updated model comes in with other data that it was trained on, it merges the two together. It's
Thank you.
not easy, but it's definitely doable. That's a great question. I didn't think to bring that up.
Okay, Jim Butler, can you discuss maintaining the persistence of your company context, training across new chats or new sessions?
Yeah, so the persistence is part of the context. So when you're in the different tools, you can go to personalization or settings in most of these tools. There's a couple things you could do here. One is like ChatGPT. I'll use that just as an example, but they all have similarities here. You can create, there's two things you can do. At the aggregate level, at the top level layer, you can you can configure it with some personalization. So how you like to write, things you'd like it to avoid when it's responding, things of that nature. That's kind of high level. Then you can get into it. Let's say you're in a consulting business and you've got different clients. You set up a folder for each client. And then you can tell it in that folder. Thanks. You can tell it uh, uh, to disregard. You're only focusing on what's happening within my folder. So client A, everything I'm doing for client A stays in the folder for client A. Everything I'm doing for client B stays in the folder for client B. And in there, it's memories and all of that stays consistent within that the interaction you're having there, and it keeps on building upon itself. So, like for this presentation, I created a folder for Fine presentation, and everything I did in it, all the different posts and such, they were what do you call it? All the chats that I did for the examples, I had them all self-contained in one place. So in here, I created, these are the different chats that I was playing with for this. Uh, and over here, I was talking about personalization and settings. So if I go to personalization, and under custom instructions, I wrote in how my communication style. Uh, I said, like, no AI tone, fluff, filler. I don't want that in. I want layman's terms whenever possible. Don't make up answers. Be factually correct. Cite sources. Avoid robotic phrases. I just went on and on and on. I also gave it a little bit more about me here. I'm an AI consultant, focused on generative AI and adoption of technologies, current projects, challenges, consulting with clients on developing assessments, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So that's one area. My memory, I've got my memory, I'm saving my memory here. These are all referenced, so it's going to reference these memories when I'm in the big like at the high level. It'll reference some chat history I wanted to do. Then if I go back, oh, in my data controls, I do want to mention this under data controls, improve the model for everyone, make sure that's turned off. Okay. And now I want to go back to here for a second in the Find. If I go in here, I'm pretty sure it's here, what my project settings are for this folder. Memory default. Project can access memories from outside the chats. Now I did that on purpose because I'm this isn't proprietary, so I wanted to basically draw from all the hundreds of other chats I've got going on and such, because there may be something relevant that I touched on for accounting that I think would be helpful in one of the prompts that I created or we're using. So I could keep that on or keep that off as an example. And then the other one was here adding instructions for this folder. This is where I can, and I didn't have anything in particular here, but now you can put stuff in here relative to that particular project, just specific to that project. And that's where it's going to stay as an example. And furthermore, I can add files. So anything specific to the project. So if this is a client, I would add client specific files here. Could be their org structure. It could be their financials. It could be, oh, geez, anything specific that's going to help with the project. Oh, maybe I needed I'm doing an IT, I'm inventorying their IT, what they have today for an IT landscape. So they might have had something already created. I'm going to add that to it instead of recreating the wheel. Things like that go in here.